because you've made food so unaffordable, rent so unaffordable, and energy so unaffordable that they are going to freeze to death this winter if they haven't been burned alive by a forest fire.
Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David, and today's top stories, we've got Justin Trudeau and the Liberals giving $25 million to Lebanon because they need some help, right? It's not like our own people in our own streets need help. We've also got Trudeau himself, Greg Fergus, and Stephen Guilbeault all getting heckled on the streets. We've got a couple clips here, one from CTV, one from CBC, some more crime, some more chaos in the streets. Let's jump into it. So first off, we got this schmuck here, Ahmed Hussein of the Liberals announcing $25 million to support humanitarian response to assist to vulnerable citizens in Lebanon. Like, that's nice. That's great. Except we have our own people who desperately need help. These tone-deaf Liberals wonder why their polling numbers keep dropping.
Scale of the need that exists there right now. I know that Canada is giving this amount of money, but I mean, that's obviously a much smaller part than the overall need. So talk about what is needed in Lebanon right now in terms of overall aid.
What's needed is urgently is food, medicine, and shelter materials, and emergency healthcare and protection services. We're talking about millions of people who've been displaced by the conflict, and we're responding to the Lebanon appeal, the global Lebanon appeal made by the United Nations, and I believe this amount of a total of $25 million will get us to our share of that appeal that Canada traditionally meets, if not exceed that share.
How do you ensure that this goes to the people that need it and doesn't end up in the hands of Hezbollah?
World Food Program, we trust them. United Nations High Commission for Refugees, we trust them. Canadian Red Cross, who are on the ground, we trust them. The members of the Humanitarian Coalition, these are international.
The Liberal government of Canada, we don't trust them. How do we know this money just doesn't go back to you guys? There's a couple briefcases there, a couple $1 million set aside. Where's the paper trail? Let's show every dollar amount where it's spent. Maybe then. It's just sad, but we can't trust these guys to give our money anywhere, let alone spend that money and get some people off the streets. You guys are terrible. Speaking of terrible, we got Captain Schmuck here. He arrived in Laos for the ASEAN summit. He's here with his younger son. As it says here, Trudeau lives literally no one there. Wow, look at that. He was greeted with a guy with a sword. Justin was the unwanted child. You can imagine what his kids would be like. And he's there for less than 48 hours. Took him 24 hours to get there. Yeah, no kidding. Burn some more carbon, man. Climate crisis must be over for this frequent flyer. How pathetic. What a pathetic joke this guy turned out to be. Yeah. You know, the hurricane that's going on in America, do we just pay and then it goes away? Or someone let me know in the comments down below. And here we've got narcissist Captain Schmuck once again. So he's going into a room full of old people. Ryan Garrettson said it really well here. It's this isn't about dental care. Trudeau wants to feel like a celebrity entering a room. He loves this stuff. It inflates his ego. That's exactly what he's doing here.
Je suis ici à une résidence pour personnes âgées pour parler des soins dentaires, pour parler de l'impact qu'on a sur nos amis, sur les gens qui ont besoin de soins dentaires à travers le pays. On va voir ce qu'ils vont dire. Bonjour tout le monde. Allô, comment ça se passe aujourd'hui?
Look at this donkey. He just goes in there. Ladies.
Quel plaisir de vous voir.
Oh, please. They put in that stock music and try to make things seem all right. Things are not all right in this country. Not with the facade here. His drama teacher time is coming to the forefront. He's a better actor than PM, but barely. He sucks as the leader of Canada. Tool comes to mind when I see this fool. Cringe. The program is a fraud. Moving on, we got Cian Bexty here of Counter Signal. He is absolutely grilling Stephen Guilbeault over what happened in Jasper.
How many Canadians right now are displaced by a wildfire? Could you tell me the amount of people? And can you tell me the amount of people who would be displaced by wildfires if you didn't have a carbon tax? I think that's a very fair question. Do you have any actual data to back up what you're doing? Or is it all just whatever the government of China tells you to do? Do you take money from the government of China yourself? How do you not see the conflict of interest that is coming out of this? Catherine McKenna had the same, but you're the only one bold enough to actually do anything with that conflict of interest. You're letting China off the hook for decades at the expense of moms and dads who can't keep their house warm because you've made food so unaffordable, rent so unaffordable, and energy so unaffordable that they are going to freeze to death this winter if they haven't been burned alive by a forest fire. You've ignored.
Dude.
No accountability, no CBC either. Where are the outlets? We've been standing on a boardwalk for the last 2 hours, catching ministers as they come by. No other media is here.
Wow, Keenan's an absolute savage with that one. Freeze to death or burned alive. Stephen Guilbeault, he's just a small, weak, little, pathetic man. He won't even turn around and just answer the question. He can't. It's all a big scam. They're not here for us. They don't care about us, and they never did. How the hell could an environmental activist end up being the Minister of the Environment for Canada? Truly embarrassing that this was allowed to happen, and the outcomes of such decision is more than predictable. Runs like the little rodent he is. I don't know what I'm looking at here. What is this? Don't worry, they bring down the CN Tower for repairs once in a while. It's probably 3D. It looks 3D. That's definitely 3D. Next up, we got Greg Fergus getting questioned on Parliament Hill here. This one coming from Daisy Media.
Mr. Fergus.
Yes, sir.
Canadians have some serious concerns about what's going on here in the House of Commons.
Yes, sir.
We've got the Liberal government, Justin Trudeau, and their government refusing to turn over documents to the RCMP.
That's a question you'll have to ask the government.
And now the leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, not able to speak in here based on comments that he made. We have a bit of concerns about.
This guy tried to body block him there. He dropped back, swung around, and then tried to push him off.
Impartiality. It wasn't too long ago Justin Trudeau basically called the Conservative caucus homophobic. You didn't give him the same treatment as you gave the leader of the opposition. Should Canadians be concerned about your impartiality?
I think Heckling should have confidence in my impartiality. Thank you.
Well, I'll give him credit for that. At least he actually said something to the camera. But he also gets credit for being a corrupt and horrible speaker. And we've got this one where they follow Justin Trudeau. And so you can hear Trudeau's getting heckled down the street, the guy with the megaphone. And then Chris Stacey follows him all the way up here. What's really shocking about this clip is you'll see how many people, squirrely little rats, come in and try to get photos with Trudeau. It's really gross.
We've got Justin Trudeau coming up the hill. He's talking to you, Mr. Trudeau. Mr. Trudeau.
Look at this. This is disgusting. You unpatriotic fools. What country did Justin Trudeau ship these guys in from? These are not Canadians. If they were, they wouldn't be supporting this guy.
Yeah. You hear that in the background as he goes for a little stroll. Mr. Trudeau, yet another controversy, another scandal. I asked you last time if we could talk about one of your scandals. Scandal. SNC Lavalin. Now the Green Slush Fund. Hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money being funneled to Liberals and their cronies. I thought your government was going to be about transparency, Mr. Trudeau. Are we ever going to get any accountability from your government, Mr. Trudeau?
He doesn't get
as you laugh and smile.
He doesn't care.
You were being held up by socialist Jagmeet Singh. Now you're siding with separatists. Will you stop holding Canadians hostage and call an election? Will you let Canadians have this? Will you let Canadians decide, Mr. Trudeau?
Want to know where all that extra money went? Maybe check his bank account. Maybe it's in there.
You can't ignore us forever, Mr. Trudeau. Accountability is coming.
So this was filmed a couple days ago before he left for Laos. Imagine having the job as the guy who carries an umbrella to protect Justin Trudeau's hair in case it rains. Sure, it pays well, but you can't buy dignity. Savage. How many people does he have with him, not to mention land yachts? He ignores anyone who's angry. Yeah, he really does. The actors running up to get a picture is priceless. Looks like you edited out the Caucasian carpenter, electrician, and healthcare worker who got selfies with him. No, those people don't exist. Canadian patriots do not support Justin Trudeau. Next up, we got a panel here at CTV talking about the Bloc's pressuring of Trudeau to get the old age pension, how Jagmeet factors into all of this.
Has been a very willing dancing partner with the Liberals throughout their time in government. And while they've kind of tried to put on a strong face in recent weeks and say that they're not working with them anymore, I think ultimately, at least right now, the NDP doesn't want an election. They're still trying to distance themselves from the Liberals. They've had a bit of movement in the polls since walking away from their agreement with the Liberal government. But I think Jagmeet Singh still needs more time in order to kind of, play up the independence of his party and send that message to Canadians. But right now, the Liberals are running out of options and the walls are closing in on them. And so to only have kind of one willing partner left and not even a true partner, I think it probably is worrying them and keeping them up at night as this fight drags on in Parliament.
They do have one other option, Jamie. They could prorogue.
Yeah, and I think it's increasingly looking like they're backed into a corner. I think if you're the PMO, you're going to want to keep your government, and you would prorogue if it gets to that point. But I do think with the NDP kind of dangling in the wind right now, trying to pretend as if they're stomping and opposed to the government while continuing to support them, the NDP right now is the least prepared party to fight a federal election. And I think it would be political suicide for them to allow Parliament to essentially falter and vote non-confidence in this government. I think if you're the government right now, kind of what the path forward is, the Liberals need to find some way to actually reclaim the agenda and look like they're trying to do something. Because right now, whether it's the Conservatives on this accountability stuff or Conservatives on affordability more broadly, with the Axe the Tax message that Pierre Poilievre's been championing, is really dominating the public conversation, and this government's just simply adrift.
He's totally right. It was shown recently NDP don't have any money. They don't have the ability really to do a national campaign for an election. So that works great for Jagmeet because he'd rather delay things till February anyways to get his $2.2 million pension. Jagmeet's pharmacare bill is getting voted on today in the Senate. The Senate is the last of all the branches it's got to go through, I believe, before it gets the royal ascension into being a law. So they're trying to push this through real quick. Jagmeet keeps his pharmacare that he can use for his push to election. Then they're hoping they get support back from Jagmeet after they prorogue and need the support of the NDP. This is what their play is going to be. They really have nothing else they can do.
I don't know if it's like necessarily that's dominating. What's changed in the last 6 weeks, Carl, is the only thing anyone is talking about is whether or not the government can survive. We're not talking about policy in any way or another. We're not talking about an agenda. Like there is nothing happening there except for a constant fight to survive.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you don't have a stable agreement like we had under the NDP Liberal agreement. So we have speculation. And it's a fun game. We play that game all the time, and we love to discuss these things and scenarios. And so now we have prorogation as an option.
Freeland says no. I should yesterday.
Yeah,
no,
and Karen Gold said no last week.
No last week.
But
right.
the one who decides is Justin Trudeau, and if he wants to prorogue, you will prorogue. But prorogue because you don't want to lose confidence in the House, prorogue because you don't want to hand over documents to police. What kind of narrative are you going to be able to put together after that when you bring back a new speech from the throne? It's going to be very difficult. I don't think it's an option, but I would say this. I think the NDP would love to have that prorogation to buy some time.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That falls right into, as I just said, Jagmeet's pension. The Liberals would have to come back with a big throne speech saying they got rid of Trudeau, they got a new leader, announced something big that they would try to get some support with. They got rid of the carbon tax. They're going to do it a different way. Like, that's what they should really do if they wanted to get some sort of support with the people who aren't really paying attention here in Canada. Because clearly the carbon tax doesn't do anything but just take our money. It doesn't affect the weather. It doesn't do anything. They know that. The gig is up, guys. They'd have to do something grand. They can't just leave for 2 or 3 months, come back and say, hey, we're back. We're ready to work now.
That's a true point, I bet. Last word to you, Saeed. Your thoughts on prorogation? Is it going to happen?
It's hard to say. And again, the only benefit to the Liberals of prorogation, at least from a voter standpoint, is if they use that time to potentially have a convention, that could then secure another leader for the party. But will that make a huge difference in the polls? Maybe, maybe not. But I think that they're between that kind of rock and a hard place, which really makes it difficult for them right now. Prorogation is the lesser of many evils for them.
Yeah, exactly. It's the lesser of many evils. They're screwed either way. Jumping over to CBC, we've got this corrupt fool, Mark Gold. You remember seeing this guy in the Senate all the time. He's an independent, clearly a liberal bootlicker. Just listen to what he says here about Justin Trudeau appointing an independent Senate.
Because, and look, and I appreciate the situation you're in, that this change to an independent Senate, even though appointed by the Prime Minister, and people would argue about its actual level of independence, they aren't a caucus that he can whip and say, you've got to do this because you're Liberals. So this makes this very difficult, right? And the calendar is there. Just how confident are you?
David, you forgive me, I don't mean, but it is, no, the senators that he appointed are not his caucus, and he does not whip them. He cannot.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And he doesn't try to. Senators Harder and Beam were appointed by this Prime Minister, as were other senators who have different views on this bill than I do, and that the government does.
We don't buy a single word out of your mouth, Mark Gold. Both these woke losers are not pulling the wool over Canadians' eyes. We know what's going on in there. We know why Trudeau has appointed so many senators, stacked the deck in the Liberals' favor for the next however many years to come.
Look, one of my constitutional law teachers, Lawrence Tribe, once quipped that, you know, if you have a crystal ball, you have to learn to live, to eat glass. And,
right.
And I have a strong stomach, but, you know, I'm not going to predict. I have confidence in this, in the Senate and doing its work. This is a good bill. It's a bill that I think falls squarely within the category of bills where the Senate should be deferring to the elected will.
Right. So
they're talking about the block bill and the old age pension. Basically, they're saying there's no way they can pass it through fast enough, even if, you know, Trudeau agreed and Blanchette and the whole thing. Next up, we got some of these cultural enrichers enriching our culture here. So what they've done is they've blocked this guy's car with two different cars, and now they're going after this guy. Now, why are they going after him? It says here, man gets robbed for a luggage bag full of money he just took out minutes earlier at a cash exchange store in Thornhill. So they saw him get money out of the machine, and then they just followed him and they cornered him. This is wild. I don't think I can have most of the audio on here. So they pull this guy out. So this is the guy, yeah, they just pull him out. So something just to teach everyone out there. If you're in this situation, you're kind of stuck, the throat can collapse very easily. And it only takes 10 pounds of pressure to rip off a human ear. Just remember those things. Even a mother with a child in her hand, you can still 10 pounds on an ear. Don't do that. But if somebody comes at you, take their ear off, they'll think twice. See, this guy has ample time to take these guys down if he's trained. He should be grabbing right behind his head and then stuffing his knee right into his nose. So they got the bags here. They're getting out of here. I hope these guys get caught, they get put in jail, they get put into a facility where they have to work for their food and their upkeep in the jail for the next 10 years, and maybe they'll think twice about doing this again. In broad daylight. Wild. I don't understand why he didn't reverse out of there. He should have. Flip it in reverse and step on it. That you can't, I mean, you got three guys on you. You can't worry about their safety at that point. You got to worry about your own. Next up, we got a bunch of these Samadoun supporters. I'm not going to play this video. So this guy runs around with the Canadian flag, and then people start ripping it out of his hands, and it turns into a whole thing. You get the idea. We got this one. After they said this on the steps of Vancouver Library, I think the majority of Canadians are not exactly understanding of these people anymore. They've made a lot of enemies in Canada now. With that, we're seeing this now. So I'm going to just click through this a bit, but this is, you can see here, footage of the pro-Hamas loyalists broke through the McGill University barrier fences on October 7th. There's a bunch of blurred out faces here, but you can see. So they're not supposed to go through. They are breaching the gates and charging through With that, coming from Beverly Hills, we've got this clip of a restaurant manager getting tired of these Hamas supporters harassing Jewish patrons out on the patio. Check this out. Just note, this guy here in this brown blazer is the restaurant manager, and one of these Samadoun guys right here tries to knock his block off, and, well, you can see what happens. Right now. This guy's ready to roll. He just wants some more. So no one else steps in. They had enough. That guy's lights out. And well done, restaurant manager. People got to step up to this. We've got an update here. So I shared a story a couple months ago about these families in Brampton just doing all sorts of renovations, adding all sorts of suites onto their house. They just got shut down for hitting a gas line in the backyard.
This is the Wild West in Brampton, and there's absolutely no rules and no consequences. And even when there are consequences, it's the cost of doing business.
The business of building basement apartments in Brampton, modifying bungalows to add new rental units fast.
Work gets done, but it gets done shoddily, quickly, and without the proper approvals.
Residents raising more alarms a month after we reported on this project on Caledon Crescent. The owner had a building permit, but neighbors pointed out safety issues, including an absence of construction fencing and open holes. Now that outdoor work,
they have been shut down.
Not by the city, but the province's Technical Standards Authority after damage to the gas line on the property. Kathleen McDermott said the city of Brampton hadn't found any problem.
I personally met 2 enforcement officers here who walked around on the piles of dirt and looked in the holes and said there was no issue.
Construction.
Those officers need to be fired. They're obviously paid off and a part of this.
On this home on Alderway Avenue also shut down because neighbors called the province. The back area isn't shored up. The owners and contractors failed to get utility lines located before digging.
The locates, for example, weren't done. You hit a gas line, you can imagine what happens in a nice neighborhood like this.
When those contractors were digging, neighbor Ray Scanlon left his home for the day. You got out of the house because you didn't want it blown up.
I didn't want it blown up. That's exactly right.
Some residents confronted contractors a few days ago.
You didn't do any locates and there's no permits? I have permit. The permit should be in the front of the house.
In an email to residents, Brampton's director of bylaw enforcement said in part the City of Brampton team is working tirelessly to address how this is unfolded, saying leaving the engagement of these enforcement partners to the complainant is not ideal.
Now, though, it's every third house is having some kind of renovation done because the house prices are so high.
Renovations by investors who buy homes to rent to as many tenants as they can.
I think their processes need to be cleaned up immediately.
Look what Justin Trudeau has done to our country. Don't forget Mark Miller and Sean Fraser. You guys are all part of this too. Bring in the worst people, jack up the prices. There's no more community and family in these cul-de-sacs, these neighborhoods. I grew up in a cul-de-sac. I know what it's like to actually know everyone in the cul-de-sac. Now you're just jamming in families, building as many tiny little rental units as possible to stuff all these people from India in. Whoever owns that home should be sued. So same with the bylaw inspector people who just came in and said nothing's wrong there. Obviously, this is a shoddy third world construction job that's going on.
Safety is a key issue, and many residents we spoke to say that unscrupulous homeowners are bending, if not breaking the rules, and that residents are the ones left to monitor what's going on when that should be the responsibility of Brampton city staff.
The city of Brampton didn't find any problems, exactly. That's the problem right there. Heritage moment. I leave my house when they start digging so I don't get blown up.
The machines just went off. My kids cannot sleep.
This is an original video.
This is a construction site, so they're allowed to do whatever they want. My house is next door.
Yeah, okay. Everyday Canada is slipping just a little bit lower, just a little lower. Paid off people at the city. You got all these slush funds, the scandals. Trudeau just jet sets off to Laos with his kid. You guys deal with all that crap. I'm going to take off, do some photo ops on the other side of the planet. Something's going to happen here in the next week, though, whether it's prorogation or whatever it may be. Trudeau Liberals can only push us off for so long before it comes back to bite them in the butt.